Welcome back, Tales from the Long Box. He's the best there is at what he does, and his costumes, they're iconic. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I just had to share it with you guys. Before we get started, here's the plan. I chose 20 of my absolute favorite Wolverine costumes. Then, I scored each one from 1.0 to 10.0. Of course, this is totally my personal opinion. I'm sure you guys have different favorites in your own order, and I'd love to hear all about it in the comments. We're going to check out the evolution of Wolverine's iconic looks as I count down my personal top 20, from his first appearance to becoming the pop culture icon we all know and love. Let's get into it. So, kicking off our countdown at number 20, we have the Feral Wolverine look from Wolverine Volume 2, issue number 100. This pseudo-costume represents a significant turning point in Wolverine's history. After Magneto forcibly removed the adamantium from his skeleton, we discovered that Wolverine possessed bone claws beneath. This revelation set in motion a storyline where his healing factor, without the adamantium to regulate it, began to spiral out of control. Over the next 2 years, Wolverine's struggle against his primal instincts played out in the comics. Fear of him fully reverting into a savage beast became a constant threat, and eventually that fear became a reality. His physical transformation was dramatic. A deeper voice, accelerated hair growth, and a loss of facial features, including his nose. This tattered and torn version of his classic yellow and blue visually represents the de-evolution. It's a striking, if unsettling, and a little strange image of vulnerability. While the bone claws themselves have always held a certain fascination for me, I admit to a touch of nostalgia for this era. This look is more about the narrative it represents than the costume itself. It's a powerful visual, but it's not a strong costume in the traditional sense. Hence its place at the bottom of my list with a score of 2.3. At number 19, it's the new X-Men uniform from X-Men number 114. The early 2000s saw the X-Men comics take a definite turn towards movie-inspired looks. Spandex was out, black leather was in. The whole team was decked out in these black leather outfits with massive yellow X logos, clearly aiming for branding levels of recognition. Frank Quitely designed this particular number, a very modern design that definitely flipped the early 2000s X-Men aesthetic. Wolverine naturally went shirtless under his leather jacket. Leather pants completed his look. It was definitely a choice, and this one was also definitely a nostalgia choice for me as well. I used to love it when I was younger, and even if it is silly, I still like it, and gave it an overall 4.0 out of 10. At number 18, we've got the Fang costume from Uncanny X-Men number 107. This brief, and let's be honest, bizarre look is a weird but interesting footnote in the Wolverine's costume history. It definitely shows he's adaptable, and it's certainly unique, but it's missing the iconic status and design flair of his more memorable outfits. The story goes that his usual costume got ripped up in a fight with the Shi'ar Imperial Guard during the Phoenix Saga. So Wolverine briefly adopted the duds of Fang, alien warrior he just defeated. He ditched it pretty quickly once he got back to Earth, but it's interesting to note that both his kids, X-23, also known as Laura Kinney, and D'Ken, have also rocked this look at various points. Talk about a family heirloom. So yeah, a solid 5 out of 10 for this one. At number 17, we have the Armored costume from Wolverine number 1. This suit, designed by Chris Anka, was a necessity after Wolverine lost his healing factor. Again, seriously, how many times has this happened? Anyway, it served a vital practical purpose, protecting him during battle. While the bulking design isn't my favorite, I get it, it makes sense in the story, I appreciate the thought behind it and all that, but it's just not very Wolverine to me. It's still cool, but it's not the coolest. So, I'm gonna give it a 5.8 out of 10. Number 16 on the list brings us to the Consolidated costume from Uncanny X-Men number 423. Around the time X2 X-Men United hit theaters, Marvel decided to try something different. They wanted a unified Wolverine look across all media, comics, games, TV, everything. So, this simplified suit was the result. Definitely continued the trend towards a more realistic aesthetic. Basically, it's a t-shirt and pants combo, with a black shirt featuring some yellow tiger stripes, and sometimes logo. It was even paired with the black leather gear sometimes from the new X-Men. Costume is practical, it's functional, and it gets the job done. But it's just lacking in the visual punch and the personality I expect from a really good Wolverine costume. So it's decent, and I gave it a 6.3 out of 10. Number 15 is the Horseman of Death costume. In Astonishing X-Men number 1, Logan became Death. This happened because after Magneto ripped out his adamantium, as we discussed earlier, Wolverine was struggling big time. So Apocalypse offered him a deal: rebond his metal bones. But this came at the cost of being brainwashed and becoming the Horseman of Death. So Wolverine goes undercover, gets brainwashed, and becomes Death. Carries a sword, wears armor, and has a full face wrap. He was totally unrecognizable. This costume redesign completely changed his whole look. Thankfully, he eventually broke free from Apocalypse's control and went back to his usual style. This look is definitely striking though, and it reflects a dark period in history. It's a powerful visual, and it is certainly memorable, but it kinda goes into that overly extreme 90s territory. So it gets a 6.4 out of 10 for this one. At number 14, we've got the X-Men training uniform. Uncanny X-Men, issue 273. This uniform, briefly worn by pretty much the whole team, from Wolverine, to Psylocke, even Gambit, is, well, it's a uniform. Blue and gold, practical, makes sense for a team working together. There's not really a costume that says Wolverine to me. It's too generic, too uniform. Though some X-Men like Forge and Banshee actually kept rocking this look for quite a while. And it's interesting to note this design was the inspiration for Morph's original look in the X-Men animated series. So I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Definitely not bad, but not the most amazing either. Sliding into number 13 is the Weapon X suit from Marvel Comics Presents number 72, or more accurately, the lack of a suit. This look is directly tied to his time in the Weapon X program. That Weapon X storyline showed us the horrific process bonding the adamantium to his bones. Wolverine, a lab rat, was hooked up to all kinds of gruesome tubes, forced to wear this VR helmet to keep his berserker rage in check. Even though they shaved his body hair for the procedure, his healing factor made it grow back super fast. The result, Wolverine has rarely looked more savage or primal. It's undeniably gritty and really captures the trauma he went through. Powerful visual, and it definitely fits the dark, experimental vibe of that story. It's a tough look to love, but it's undeniably impactful. 7.2 out of 10. Number 12 is the Age of Apocalypse costume from X-Men Alpha. Age of Apocalypse storyline saw Xavier's son, Legion, travel back in time and accidentally kill his father, drastically rewriting history. Apocalypse ruled North America. Magneto's X-Men were the only resistance. Logan operated as a free agent, calling himself Weapon X instead of Wolverine, wearing a red and blue variant on the Tiger Stripe costume. Most notably, he was missing his left hand, lost in a battle with Cyclops. It's a cool look for the reality, and it effectively sets him apart. Creative take on the character that works well within that specific context. Nostalgia definitely plays a role in my appreciation for this one. I was a really big fan of the Age of Apocalypse storyline. So this one gets a 7.3 out of 10. Don't fight me on it. Okay, moving right on to number 11. We have the Fantastic Four suit from Fantastic Four Volume 6, Issue 21. This blue suit, complete with the Fantastic Four logo, is a fun and functional design, and it makes perfect sense when he's part of the team. It's a nice change of pace and shows his versatility. Good example how Wolverine can adapt his look to fit different teams and situations. While it's really more of like a 1 or 2 time costume, it's still a personal favorite. Maybe it's just because it's so different seeing him in blue. Plus, the whole team aspect is key. If he wore it solo, I don't think I'd like it as much. I gave it a 7.4 out of 10. Okay, so now we're breaking into the top 10. At number 10 is the black costume from Marvel Comics Presents number 8. When Wolverine got his own series that year, John Buscema put him in the stealthy black duds to emphasize his ninja training. During his Madripoor adventures, Wolverine wore this black sleeveless bodysuit, sometimes with a red belt or camouflage. He debuted it while helping Tiger become the island's crime lord and kept it for early solo missions, while he still wore his brown suit costume in Uncanny X-Men. Though short-lived, I still think it's a really interesting and fierce look. 7.6 out of 10. At number 9 is another personal favorite of mine, the House of M Red Guard costume from House of M number 2. In the alternate Earth 58163 universe, Wolverine leads the Red Guard, a different version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and gets a new costume. The Red Guard suit has an epaulet-like shoulder marking, reflecting the group's government role and his leadership. It's sleek, powerful, and conveys authority. I especially like the huge knee-high boots, even if others don't. It's a strong, different look that fits into the alternate reality. I gave it a 7.7 out of 10. Number 8 is a more recent one, and it is the techno-organic form from X Deaths of Wolverine. This future Wolverine has a techno-organic form with computerized markings. It makes him look futuristic and intimidating. This eye-catching look reflects his advanced form in this timeline. A bold departure, it's definitely unique, and a fascinating glimpse into the possible future. While the Myrna series has its critics, I think it still introduced a dazzling new look at the very least. I gave this costume an 8.5 out of 10. Coming in at number 7 is the Diamond Patch look from Infinity Wars number 3. Okay, I know it's not really Logan Wolverine, but I don't care. I love this version. In Warp World, a pocket dimension, Diamond Patch is a fusion of Wolverine and Emma Frost. Given Emma's fashion sense, this version gets upgraded with a tailored suit, blonde hair, and an eye patch. Diamond Patch is surprisingly stylish and sophisticated. It leans more Emma than Logan, who usually wears casual clothes or utilitarian suits. This unexpected take is a fashion flex I kind of love, so I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Just out of the top 5, and at number 6, is the original costume from The Incredible Hulk number 181. This simple yet effective design by John Romita Sr. started it all. It's a classic for a reason. Raw, iconic, and perfectly captures his initial feral introduction. The yellow spandex, black tiger stripes, pointy mask and gloves, and small blue shoulder pads were all there. The main difference was the mask's whiskers. Even if it needed tweaking, its importance and dynamic look are what are undeniable. It gets an 8.6 out of 10. Now at number 5, the X-Force uniform from X-Force number 1. This dark, tactical suit, designed for covert missions, reflects Wolverine's role as an X-Force leader. The X-Force is a hardcore, militaristic alternative to the X-Men. Their costumes are generally stealthy versions of familiar looks. Wolverine's is based on his tan and brown outfit in black and gray, with menacing red eye lenses. It suits its purpose so well, he even wore it off the grid. The muted colors and practical designs scream stealth, and I just think it's a really cool looking outfit. It gets an 8.7 out of 10. Up next is number 4, the Krakoa costume from House of X number 1. Designed by Pepe Larraz, it recalls his 80s brown and yellow-orange costume, with updated details like John Cassidy's revamp of the yellow and blue. It blends both classic and modern styles beautifully, reflecting his role in Krakoa's formation. It feels both familiar and new at the same time. Brown color is a nod to his past, while the design is completely contemporary. Overall, I gave this one a 9.3 out of 10. At number 3 is one of mine and a lot of people's favorite, the astonishing X-Men number 1 costume. This updated yellow and blue is just so good. It harkens back to this tiger stripe apparel, but toned down. Wolverine finally stopped wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants. It blends the best of old and new, finding everything that worked about the original. The minor tweaks give it a fresh feel while retaining the core elements. I gave this one a 9.5 out of 10. Nearing the top, at number 2, is of course the classic yellow and blue costume from giant-sized X-Men number 1. Now, some people might say this is number 1, and I get that. Number 1 and 2 in this list are almost completely interchangeable. Number 1 just barely edged it out a little bit. This iconic look is arguably the most recognizable. Most elements from the tiger stripe outfit remain, minus the whiskers. Though replaced by the tan and brown costume, it did return in X-Men number 5 in 1992, which was a huge thing. Wolverine was huge in the 90s, and this costume was probably the one most people know him best for. He even appeared in this costume in the X-Men animated series and many games. Bold colors, shoulder pads, and close-fitting masks are almost near perfect. I gave this one a 9.9 out of 10. Finally, at number 1, my absolute favorite, a perfect 10 out of 10. Brown costume from X-Men issue 139. This rugged, practical design is, in my opinion, the definitive Wolverine look. The earth tones feel grounded and primal, capturing his animalistic side. It endured through the 80s and early 90s, appearing in early X-Men games, and even in that one weird Pride of the X-Men pilot, where Wolverine was an Australian. Logan even has returned in it a couple times, like one time in Wolverine Origins. It feels tough and vulnerable, reflecting his complexity. It's iconic, practical, cool, and to me, it's just Wolverine. And there you have it, my top 20 Wolverine costumes. Putting this list together was a journey. Seriously, narrowing down Wolverine's extensive wardrobe to just 20 was a challenge. He's had so many looks over the years, each one reflecting a different era, different storyline, a different facet of his complex personality. From the practical to the outlandish, from the classics to the experimental, Wolverine's costumes are a visual representation of his evolution as a character. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could you leave out that costume? How could you rank that one so low? And to that I say, fair enough. This is my personal list, my subjective take on Wolverine's best looks. Costume preferences are, after all, highly personal. What resonates with one person might not with another. And that's the beauty of it. We all have our favorite artists, storylines, and costumes. And those preferences inevitably influence our opinions on comics as a whole. So, I'm genuinely curious, what are your top Wolverine costumes? Which ones did I get right, and which ones did I get totally wrong? Let me know in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts, your rankings, and your justifications. Let's geek out together and have an old-fashioned costume debate. And while you're down there in the comments, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribing to the channel helps support me in creating more content like this. And hitting the notification bell will keep you updated on all my future videos. I've got plenty more comic book content planned, from character deep dives to more lists. So you definitely don't want to miss out. Thanks so much for watching, especially if you hung around this whole time through this Wolverine costume journey. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one.